Hi, I'm Kathy Tadaldi, and I work at the Denham Springs Walker Branch Library in the Livingston Parish Library. And today we're doing a curbside craft for your enjoyment. This one is the macrame stone necklaces, and I have a few samples here for you that I've made with different threads and different stones. And I was going to show you some of the stones you might decide to use in your necklace. You're probably going to have tumbled stones like these in the kit that you get, and we're going to have a variety of them. But I have been collecting rocks now for about 35 years, and I have got a huge collection of rocks. And so I just brought a few of them to show you because it's a fun hobby. And the main thing people ask me is, where do you find your rocks? Where do you get them from? And it's a funny thing. Once you decide you want them, it's like you're a magnet. You find them everywhere. You find them at garage sales. You find them when you go to a bookstore. Someone's got a little nook in the corner with rocks for sale. If you go on vacation, they have a rock collection in the back corner. So this is an amethyst cluster, and it looks very much like this one, but this is actually fluorite. A lot of times you'll see fluorite and they'll call it amethyst, but it's a little bit different. It's actually the same as this one. That's a piece of fluorite. This is just purple and that one's blue. And some of them I just pick them up because they look good. I like that one. This is calcite, two kinds. This is green calcite, and this one has a unique property. It bends light. I don't know if you can see that, but it makes the lines double if you turn it in one direction rather than the other, that you can see through the top. And then remember last time when we made our little eyeglass case? Well, you can use these eyeglass cases for other things as well. And I brought some other rocks in my eyeglass case. I like fossils. Oh, they're stuck in the bottom. These are geodes. They're little hollow rocks where the crystals grow toward the inside, and when they slice them in half and polish them, I don't know if you can see the sparkly insides or not. But those are really pretty to sit in the window or make jewelry out of. In fact, this is a slice of a geode. Can you see the light through that? That would make a nice necklace. If I can get these out of here, I'll show you what else I brought. Fossils. This is a giant crinoid stem, and this has old antique seashells in it. Also, a nice one for this project. Over here, now this is fool's gold, iron pyrite, and that is the same as this, only one of them cooled slowly and one of them cooled quickly when they were forming. And then in here, I brought some tiger eye. Tiger eye is the stone we're going to use today when we make our necklace. Oh, it's stuck on the lining. Sorry about that, folks. I want to show you the process of making a polished stone. Out you go. Okay, all of these, you bring them right over here so you can see better. This is the stone we're going to make today into a necklace. Can you see the shimmering of it? That's called tiger's eye. And it's supposed to give you bravery, confidence, make you strong. And this one has been tumbled and polished like that. Now this is also tiger's eye. It's been tumbled and polished, but just like the iron pyrite, one of these cooled slowly and one of them cooled quickly. So you get kind of a conglomerate look here, and you get this beautiful striated look here. And this is a piece that someone cut from a slab of tiger eye. It's pretty, but it's not striking like the polished one. This is from that same slab after it's been polished a bit. You can see how it catches the light better. And then when you just like I said, when it looked like this, it probably just looked like a pretty rock, and then somebody tumbled it and polished it, and it really brought out, the light catches it better. So that is some of the rocks that I brought along. Oh, and this one is peacock ore. I forgot to mention that. That's in the same family with the iron pyrite. This one is just a rock my dad found. When people go on vacation, they say, oh, what can I bring you? I say, bring me a rock. Just find a rock. And my dad found this wonderful, wonderful little stone in a creek in North Carolina. So I collect all kind of rocks. These little bottles are here because you might want to make your necklace around something that's not a stone. And little antique perfume bottles or something of that nature might be a fun thing to put. This is a piece of hematite that's been carved into a turtle. And here is a little angel from clear quartz crystal. I think you can see her better up there. Rock collecting is just a lot of fun. You can find all kinds of things to have fun with rocks. Now, let's get to our program today. I'm going to show you how to make a little net bag, and believe it or not, this is very much like the plant hanger craft that we did. If you watch that video, you're going to recognize that we're doing the same thing, only we're doing it on a very tiny scale. This is a rock we're going to use, and I've already decided to hang it this way with the point down. So I'm going to put it into the bag that way. This is like making a net bag. These are the threads that I use. This one was this one. The blue was the fluorite. And then I used this for these two. It's just number 10, a very old spool of number 10 crochet thread. And then this is embroidery thread. And the benefits of using embroidery thread is that, number one, it's very inexpensive. You can just buy it by the skein like that. And it comes in many, many colors, so you can use any color you want. You can go down and find it in many colors. And this is the one I used to do the crystal. And the only problem with using embroidery thread is that it's not wrapped real tight. There's 6 strands there, and they're meant to be separated easily. So when you're working, you have to make sure that you don't get them confused and have the strands come apart on you. But it wasn't too bad. So for this one, I'm using the number 10 ecru crochet thread. And you're going to have your threads pre-cut in the bag that you get. And I have 3 short threads, about 18 inches long, and 1 long one that's twice as long as that. And you'll see why in a minute, because we have a use for those long threads. Once we get the net made, then I'm going to do something with the threads. So to start with, the long one, it's folded in half, match the ends, and go down to the loop right here. And you want your loop small enough that the rock doesn't fall out, basically. Not too big, not too small, about a 1/2 inch from the end. You're going to tie just a plain old overhand knot, or over finger knot. They're very tiny. So you pull your knot about like so. That's probably a good size. I don't think the rock can fall through that. Well, a little smaller. We want the net to be kind of near the bottom. Now that's the one thing. When you're still spacing your knots, don't tie them real tight, because you might end up going back and tying them smaller, or moving them. So that's the loop. See, I made a little loop, just about fingertip size loop. That's going to be the bottom of the net. Now, to start the rest of the strings onto it, I take one of the 4 strands and I fold it in half. You're going to fold all of them in half, but we're going to do it one at a time. You take that loop and you pass it through the other loop, okay? And then you run your threads, you catch them in the second loop, see? And you're going to pull that tight. See what I've done here? I've looped the second thread through the loop of the first one. Ta-da! See there? Now you have a loop in the middle with 2 strands going out in either direction. I'm going to do the same thing with the other 2, going north and south. East, west, north, south. So, fold it in half. Pass the loop into the central loop there. We're just trying to make the threads that are going to form the net. Okay, so here's your loop you just passed through. Put your 2 threads through it, and then gently pull it tight. See there? Now you have east, west, and north. We just need to put south on there, and we'll be ready to start making our net. Okay, got our loop. Put it into the central loop here. Make it big enough to work with. Pass the 2 threads through it, and then gently pull it tight. Okay, now what we have looks like a little square. your rock is going to fit right in the center of that. So at this point, just make sure your square is small enough that the rock doesn't fall out. See? It's going to come up around the rock. And then what we're going to do, now it starts getting to be like the plant hanger. We're going to take these two, each of these two threads, we're going to tie one of them to the thread next to it. And we're going to make these knots about a 1/4 of an inch from the original knot. See, we're just going to make like a little triangle there, see? We're going to make because you want your net to be fairly close together, and it's going to stretch a little bit when the stone gets in there. So I just do an overhand knot. You saw that one. And then I use my fingers to push it down close to within about a 1/4, maybe a 1/2 inch, not a 1/4, more like a 1/2 inch, maybe 3/8, okay? 3/8 inch from the other knot is a good place to start. If you want a looser look, or if you're working with a bigger rock, make it further out, make it a 1/2 inch. If you're working with a really tiny rock, like if you decided to do one of these really small crystals or a really small stone, you would maybe make your knots closer together. So then I move to the second set. At this point, it's easy to get confused, but remember the first one you made is a square. The bottom one describes a square. And the ones after that, the next one is a triangle, and then you're going to have diamond-shaped ones, but that's really not, you don't have to worry about that. Just remember to tie one string to the one next to it. So we're going in, kind of match the knots underneath at the bottom end, and then an overhand knot. Now, when you put the rock in, I keep putting my rock in to make sure I'm doing it right as I go along. Every time I get a layer of knots tied, I put the rock in to make sure. And as you do that, don't tie your knots too tight, because you may end up wanting to go back and loosen it and move it up or down. So that's what I have this little tiny little pin for. That's my knot undoer in case I have to redo one. So now I'm moving on to my third knot. There's going to be 4 knots in each tier of the net. And you just kind of gently work it down close to the other knot. There it is. And now I'm down to my 4th knot. I've just about finished my first tier of my net. See how it looks? Can you see? I've got a square with 3 triangles coming out, and I'm about to make the 4th one. And then I just move it down close to about there. All right, so once you get all 4 of those knots tied, it should look kind of like that. If you pull it out, a square with 3 triangles, and the rock is going to go right in the middle. Put it in there and see if you like how it looks. Yeah, that's going to be fine. Now it's time to start with the next tier. So I can go back and tighten these knots. I like the way it looks, so I tighten each one up a little. And I'm ready to tie 4 more knots. You're going to just take, everywhere there's 2 knots, you take 1 string from that set and 1 string from this set, and you tie them together. Once again, just like the plant hanger. Make it about the same distance as you did on the other first tier, between a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch, about like so. Don't tie it too tight in case you change your mind and want it further apart or closer in. One of the ones I was working on, I learned the hard way. I had tied it nice and tight, and when I put the stone in there, it was too much space, so I had to go back with a pin and very carefully pick the knot out, 4 knots out, and move them in closer because I wanted the net to be a little more tight, a little tighter. Okay, so there's my second one. 3rd knot. Just make sure the the knots that you've already made on the first tier there. Make sure they're lined up next to one another whenever you tie your knot. It keeps your net looking nice and even. Of course, I guess you could go for kind of an abstract look if you wanted to just make it look kind of wonky. That would be a cool look too. But for this one, we're trying to make it look kind of symmetric and neat. Okay, fourth knot, and then we're going to put the rock back in it again, and it starts to look like it's in a net. And then we probably only have 1 or 2 more tiers to make after that. Okay, I've made another set of knots. Let's put our stone in there and see if we like it. This stone has a smile on the back. That's how I know that's the bottom. Okay, the square is the bottom. The square is where the point of the rock needs to sit. And these pieces pull up around the sides. Right now the rock is still a little bit top heavy. Let's put it that way. All right, it's starting to look good. 1 or 2 more tiers of knots is all we're going to need to finish this one off. So just hang with me there. We're going to tie another set of knots and see if we need to do it again or if we're done. Okay. Oh, I can tighten these up now. All right, now I'm ready to move on and get 1 string from here and 1 string from the one next to it and tie it. Moving along, I got that one left over from that, tie it to the one next to it. I'm going about, like I said, about a 1/2 inch up, not quite a 1/2 inch. Third knot. Believe it or not, once you've done 1 or 2 of these, it goes pretty quickly, and they make really cool gifts. If you can order online bags with tumbled stones in it, and you can make these for your friends, share them with the kids in the neighborhood, or give them as gifts. It's a lot of fun. Make one to go with different outfits. All right, there's my 3rd row of knots. Let's see if that's enough. Let's see if we're going to have to do another row or if that's going to do it. Put the rock down in the net, go down to the square one at the bottom. Pull your little net gently up around it. Now at this point you want to pull it kind of tightly because the weight of the rock is going to stretch it a little bit anyway, and you don't want it getting saggy after you've finished it. Let me see, let's turn it this way. Oh yeah, I think we're done. We're ready for the knot at the top. See what we did? It looks like a little fishing net. Let's tighten these last 4 knots. And now we're ready to just tie 1 big overhand knot at the top. Oh, let's get the corner in the square here. Okay. Get our rock centered. Now, I'm going to pull it all kind of tight. See, we wouldn't have had room for another tier of rocks. That's about as far as it goes. And you straighten your strings out. Now here's when we're going to use our pin also. Again, we're going to use the pin to pull the knot close to the stone, because otherwise it might end up way up high up here. So I've got my overhand knot tied, and it wants to go up high, and I want it close to the stone. So I'm going to put this pin through the knot and hold it close to the stone here, see, like a little anchor. And I'm going to pull the knot tight and pull the pin down near the rock as I'm pulling the knot. You see what I'm doing? The knot is close to the rock. There you go. So now, if you want to stop here, you have a very lovely net for your stone. And I've got two other varieties. We're going to send a little pony bead, I call them, with you in case you want to decorate your rock with a stone at with a bead at the top. And I'm going to show you how to get that bead onto it. Now let's see, I brought a couple of beads over here. What color would we like to use on our rock? I kind of like that one. Okay, let's go with that. I made a little tool. It's a paper clip with a hook on the end, but we can't send one of these with every one of you to pull your strings through your beads. And you could try putting them all through one at a time, but I came up with another idea. Take your long string and pass it through the hole in your bead. Might have to pinch it a little bit, but it'll go in there. There you go. Now, don't pull it all the way through. You want to leave the loop there, because what we're going to do is we're using this as a tool to pull all these strings through. So, you loop all the strings, or you don't loop them, you pull them through the loop. See, you've got the loop, and you're going to use that to pull all those strings. I'll tell you what, we still want to get this one in there too. Well, let's just pull these through. There you go. And all the strings went into the bead. There you go, except the one that you used for the loop. Now, why did I do that? When I did it last night, they all went in there. Well, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to trick it. We're going to put that in amongst these other strings. We can put that in the middle and pull the bead down over it. Let's see if we can do that. Yay! Now it's in there too. I tricked that string. Okay, now you have a bead on top of the knot. And at this point, you can simply tie another knot and call it finished, and it'll look like this. But I want to show you something that I like to do that is actual macrame. Not that this isn't, but this is a macrame knot. I did it on this one. It makes a real pretty finished loop if you want to hang it like as a necklace or in the window or something like that, and you want a pretty loop. That's why I left the long strings. Let me show you what we're going to do with them. Let's get them next to one another here. And we'll just do it right on top of the bead. I don't know the name of this knot, but what you do is you put your string over the base string, and then you pull it through underneath it, see? And then you pull it tight. And you just keep doing that. You put it over it, and you pull it underneath it, through the loop. And then you pull it tight. Over, through the loop. You get the hang of it pretty quick. And once you start doing it, it goes really fast. I do that about 12 times, and I look and see if it's long enough for what I want to do to loop it back on itself. For this one, I actually did 15. But this thread is, I think, a little thicker, so let's just see what it looks like after 12. What did I do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and now let's see what happens if I bend it over, if that's big enough for a loop. I think I want a couple more. Let's just do it a couple more times. I want the loop big enough to work with easily. So we'll just do a few more. That's 13, 14, and 15. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 2 threads and tie them around the base of where I started. At this point, you can cut these off. And I have just a touch of glue that I'm going to put on there just to keep it from raveling very much. But now that you've got these all anchored and tied inside these nice tight knots, you can just cut them off. They're not going anywhere. And I won't put the glue on until I'm through with everything else. So you take these 2 strings, separate them, and you're going to tie them back around the base, just above the bead. You see what I did? I pulled them. I held this and made a loop, and then I pulled this back. Oops, one of the knots came off. That's okay. That's okay. We still have 14. That's good. When we tie it, it'll solve that problem. Okay, you see how I've pulled it close to its own base right there? I'm going to tie a tight little square knot at the bottom, and then I'm going to put a little dot of glue on it to make sure. You start a square knot just like you're tying your shoelaces. You just simply pull one through. I'm kind of handicapped because I'm holding the base string tight, kind of like tying a bow on a gift. Okay, you see that little that knot that I'm about to tighten up right on top of the bead? I made it. Okay, you tie that nice and tight. You see what we got there? And then you do that again in the opposite direction to make it a square knot. Once you put the glue on, it doesn't matter if it's a square knot or a granny knot, it's not going anywhere. Okay, we're done. We're done. And that's big enough to put a string through. If you wanted to make it bigger, all you would have had to do was to make 16 or 17 of those macrame knots instead of, we ended up with 14. But I'm going to trim these off close, and like I said, I like to put a spot of glue on it to anchor it. Actually, I could have trimmed that a little closer so you don't see the string at all. Sometimes I trim it after I glue it, but that's not going anywhere. And you just put the tiniest little, remember me in the cornhusk dolls? This is going to be a tiny little dot of glue. Well, there it is. Just enough to keep that string from coming undone, and that's going to dry clear. There you go. Let's see, we can hang it. Let's put these strings through here. And in fact, now I'll use my little tool. We'll pull the string through here so I can hang it, and you can see how pretty that's going to look on a thread or a cord or a chain even around your neck. Come on, cooperate. There you go. Now, once again, you can choose to do it with or without the bead and with or without the extra loop. I've got different varieties of those shown how it's going to look, and you can choose whichever one of those you like best. And that's our tiger eye in a macrame casing. You can make a necklace from that. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our curbside craft today. And I hope you enjoy making your stone necklaces, and maybe you'll even start a rock collection. It's a lot of fun. So y'all stay safe and stay happy, and remember to keep reading.